Hello everyone, welcome to day 6 of I'm not going to be speaking too loudly today because I do notice there are some people watching the rhinos that are across the watering hole and I don't want to be overly ruining the experience for them. This is one of the most packed days of the trip. Today started super early. We had a morning drive at 6:15 and I set all the alarms. I still found myself rushing to get there. I was late and the guide ended up calling me on the phone to make sure that I was coming, and thankfully they waited for me. When the guide called me on the phone, I answered the phone, but then it wouldn't connect, and WhatsApp left it saying that there was a missed call. And then after I missed the call, it asked for permission to use the microphone, which is not the most frustrating thing I've ever experienced in WhatsApp, but still seems particularly dangerous to ask for permission to use the microphone after a call has happened. You would assume you would have permission to use the microphone if you're receiving a phone call, right? But it was a lovely drive. We didn't see as many animals during this drive as we did during the drives that we had yesterday, and we did have to keep it relatively short because we had other things on our itinerary. We spent at least a third of the time watching this pride of lions. There were some little baby cubs and they were playing with each other and they're just being super cute. Later on, one of the other ladies spotted an eagle and it was impressive. There was a whole valley below us. It's like the driver just went straight up to the edge and he stayed there. And if we'd gone any farther, we would have gone like, ooh, but we didn't. Yeah, the lions are pretty cute. Some of them were playing with trees. We saw a jackal today for the first time. Two of the other people went on a night drive, able to see some pretty cool animals that way. We saw an elephant out in the distance too. That was pretty cool. We saw some more zebras and like impalas, and we got really close to some rhinos. It was pretty good. See some rhinos right across right now. It's real. The only thing that wasn't pleasant about the drive was I started noticing while we were watching the lions that my pinky finger and the top of my ring finger started tingling. And shaking my hand didn't stop. I wasn't pressing on my hand. I don't understand why it was falling asleep. It was a bit worrisome, but there's someone who's part of the group who has diabetes, and apparently it started sounding very similar to what happens when her blood sugar gets low. So she handed me some peanut butter crackers and I drank some water too, and like the tour guide offered some digestive biscuits and that caused the tingling to go down. So I think it was a blood sugar thing, and I don't really experience that too often, so I'm not sure what was the reasoning behind it this time. Just one of those things, I guess. Yeah, after we had the drive this morning, we went and we had breakfast and we did some preparing, and then we drove out to the Nanyuki spinners and weavers. It's this group of ladies. They're either single mothers or they fell apart hard times and they needed a way to support themselves. So they started making their own yarn and dyeing their own yarn, and they were spinning it, and then they weaved them into these beautiful tapestries. When we first arrived, we were told about where there was a bathroom. I didn't have to go, but if you say bathroom enough times around me, I will start thinking that I need to go, so I ended up using the bathroom, which it was strange. It was like a Western toilet, but there wasn't a toilet seat, and it was super low to the ground, so it was like a Western toilet that was trying to be a squat toilet, if that makes sense. We saw some ladies working on a thatched roof. So there were some people who were attaching the thatches to the roof, but there were like a group of 3 ladies who were tying the different grasses together, and one of the ladies actually showed me the process when I went up later on. She basically got a fistful of 2 of them together, and then she tied it with the rope, and it looked like she used some sort of slip knot. It wasn't just a straight square knot. There was some sort of loop and then pull it, and it made it tighter that way, and then it was tied to the roof. They were very kind to let me watch. I didn't get to see the tying to the roof part, but I got to see like the putting together as part of the different brushes. We're greeted by this lady, Mary. And Mary was the one who explained everything to us. So first, she brought us into the spinner's room and she showed us the process for carding. There were 4 other ladies spinning, and one other lady carding wool in there. And they use all merino wool. They have to get their wool from very far away. They have the more traditional spinning wheels, the ones with the circle, and they have the pedal and the bobbins like right there. It's more like what people draw when you think of a spinning wheel. They were all working on single ply at the moment when we were watching them do it. And then Mary also explained the various colors that they get because they have most everything in one facility, but the washing and the dyeing of the yarn happens across the road. And they wash the yarn after they spin it. They wash it up to 10 times. And in washing it up to 10 times, they can take it from the brown color that it was and get it closer to a purer white that reacts better with the dyes. They were surprising colors. They showed us this red that I got from the cactus. It literally left Mary's fingers stained red. Apparently you can also get a red from a dandelion, and red cabbage gives you blue. Who knew, right? After we saw the spinners, we went into the weaver's room, and that was impressive. So they also weave rugs and placemats and scarves. The scarves are more on the horizontal loom. I think the scarves are done on like a ridge heddle loom, but the rug tapestries were from floor to ceiling. They must be a monster to warp. But they were doing designs in the rugs, and they have a paper behind the rug, and that has the design that the person's working on. So she's able to just follow along with the design to make sure that she's weaving the right thing. They try to weave it in a way in that the rug is reversible. So you could have it on either side and it works. After that, we were taken to the showroom where we could buy some of their work to support them. One of the other ladies, when she heard they were rugs, she's like, I would feel bad stepping on it. It's so much work. But they were like, yeah, it's a rug. You're meant to step on it. I ended up leaving with a little placemat. I have it packed away right now. I'm probably going to have a video just showing off the artwork that I got from Kenya because there's just a lot of artwork here. We were looking at the different rugs. I asked Mary if she was able to sell us like raw yarn. If she was able to just sell us yarn, not necessarily something woven, but some of the yarn that the lady spun, because that was very intriguing to me. She's the real MVP here, Mary is, because she went across the street and came back with skeins of yarn, and one of the other ladies in the group was also wanting to buy yarn. We both did the same thing with the loose beads when we were at the bead shops. It's like, oh, we're the raw materials gang. We're the raw materials group. We also want to use some of this stuff ourselves. And so I ended up getting a hank of each color that was available, just so I could have a little something to play with. Ooh, some of the birds are noisy. They're chilling in the nest in front of me. There's about 6 nests in front of me right now. Right next door to the spinners and weavers was the school. So we were able to see a primary school. The person who guided us around was the deputy principal, Purity, and she brought us into the office and had us meet with a group of 10-year-olds. The school has about 3-year-old to 13-year-olds, and they start really young at the school to get with the social skills, and then they introduce reading and getting used to the different skills like that. So that way they're socialized, and then by the time that they're able to leave, they're able to do sewing, and there's also some time for play. They're all wearing these bright blue school uniforms. When she went out to go get them, we were told, like, go ahead, smile, show that you're enjoying themselves, because Kenyans love to perform. So for the school students to perform for us, that is an honor. And it turns out Craftours funds some of these schools to prepare for services that they need. Like, they helped put in a well to help get a more reliable water source for the children who are going to the school. They were just a joy to behold. They came in, they sang us a song, and it was pretty nice, and we clapped afterwards, and then the vice principal ended up turning to us, do you have a song for them? And like camp counselor days kicked in, and I sang a song for them, and I did a repeat after me song so that way they could join in, and they seemed to enjoy that. It was nice. I hadn't sung a song like that in a while. After that, we went out and walked to the play yard. There's like hundreds of kids there, and they were all coming up to us and giving us hugs, giving us high fives. We came to another class that sang us a song. That was like the Swahili version of head, shoulders, knees, and toes, is from what I'm guessing. And they also stopped some other people in the group. Some of them were lifting the other little kids up. And the gentleman who's with our tour group, one of them came up to him with a soccer ball and he kicked the soccer ball super high up for them, and they're also intrigued by his binoculars. He was in a mob of kids. There was another group of kids who ended up singing us a song, and they had these plastic jugs that were operating as drums. The kids were hitting it with the drums. These were slightly older kids. There was one little girl who just wanted to hold on to my thumb, and I just let her. It's like, okay, you just want to hold on to your hand, we'll interact with the kid the way the kid wants to be interacted with. And on my other hand, there were 3 girls fighting over my right hand at one point. I guess because I don't typically see nail polish. I thought they would have been more intrigued by my hair, but I guess my head wasn't low enough for them. 3-year-olds are really small. But while they were singing this song, one of the other ladies turned to me and was like, some of them are staring at your hair. And then we went into 2 different classrooms. So we went to a classroom of 5-year-olds, and they sang us a song about God loves me, God made my eyes, my nose, my mouth, and they did a lot of this. And they sang it through several times, and there's 36 kids in there, and they were in the process of learning how to read. So there were pictures on the wall. They had different letters and different words. There was the whole alphabet up there, and there were also syllables too. They had different syllable sounds. So I'm not sure if it was the English alphabet or the Swahili alphabet, because they're virtually identical as far as I can tell from what I've been learning about Swahili. And then we walked over to the play group with the little 3-year-olds, and most of the kids had left the recess yard at this point. And there were some kids hanging out outside, and the deputy principal said something to them, and you could tell, even though it was in Swahili, you could tell it was something along the lines of, what are you doing outside? Get back to your class. We walked into the 3-year-old class, and their signs are more pictures. So they're learning to identify pictures, and they're literally starting to learn how to read. They didn't do a performance for us so much as the teacher went over, like, she got a pointed stick from the board. It was like a huge green tube, and she was like hitting the board and with the tube at different parts, and it's like, what's the sound? It's like, A, apple. Or like they're pointing at this picture, what's this picture? Flower. And the teacher has such a joyous energy. I just love the sound of her voice, and I loved her energy level, which when you're working with 3-year-olds, you need a huge energy level. One of the little kids was asleep, and they just let him sleep, because when they're 3 years old, it's the first time they're away from home, and they're learning how to adjust to the schedule, and some of them are used to sleeping at the time when they're supposed to be awake for school. So he just nodded off, and you could tell there's one little girl who wanted attention in the group, and you could tell, like, she's the one that the teacher's probably going to have to say to her when she's older, let someone else answer. After that, we went back to the Land Rover, and we started driving back to the camp. And now we're in a little bit of a downtime. We had some lunch. I tried some vegetable fritters for the first time. They were pretty good. Some tilapia, some rice. There's definitely a huge influence of Indian cuisine here. Probably because we're very close to India. In this location, they're just across the Indian Ocean. We're going to have a bit of a knitting class a little bit later on. It's going to be a shorter knitting class, and then we've got another activity, a couple more activities after that, and I signed up for one more. 2 of the other ladies went on a night drive, and they're going to be looking at the safari. They said it was absolutely worth it, and I signed up for it. So we'll get to see what it's like, because when are we going to be coming back? Yeah. Yeah, that's half of my day so far. I'm probably going to check back in once a little bit more has happened. I was too tired to continue filming last night. So after I left off the last portion, I went to the second knitting class of the trip. We didn't have as much downtime to knit as we were expecting to have. The knitting designer went over the basics of the second half of the pattern, like how to bead and how to do the I-cord bind off for the pattern, and just general information about changing colors for the pattern as well. I did learn some new stuff, which was really good. I made some progress on the shawl, and I was hoping for a finished shawl, but hey, I will get a finished shawl. I just won't be in Africa when it's done. And then after that, we went on our second game drive of the day. So it was a lot warmer this time around. I didn't film quite as much for the third game drive because I'd already been filming so much for the first 2 halves. And a lot of the animals are repeat animals. I've already gotten shots of them, so I wanted to take the time to just enjoy being around the animals. There weren't as many, but there were still quite a few. Our driver took us really close. It was like circling closer and closer, and we got a really good view. We figured out it was a male elephant because there was a fifth leg. We were told later by another person in our group that they could hear our giggling from across the plain. One of the other ladies in the Jeep with me was like, I guess he's happy to see us, and the driver's joking like, don't zoom in, it's already big enough. The elephant was just taking time to kick up some of the grass and then its foot, and then use the trunk to kind of get it together and lick the food, and then was bringing the food up to his mouth. We also learned that you can tell whether an elephant is right-handed or left-handed, although it's more right tusk or left tusk for them because the shorter tusk is the one that they use the more. So we were looking at a right-handed elephant. We also stopped on this game drive to see Baraka. So Baraka is a black rhino. He's blind. He lost one of his eyes in a fight when he was younger, and he lost the other eye because there was a cataract and they tried to do surgery on it and it just didn't work. So Baraka is blind, which means he is the only rhino in the world that you can pet. We ended up going to, in the middle of the game drive, a little enclosure of the rhino, and we were led through the area by Robert. First we met Baraka on this platform where we could just see him walking around. Then he had Baraka come to the wire, and he had a bunch of tree branches, and we got to feed Baraka and then pet Baraka. The rhino was very rough. Both the horn and the skin were rough and leathery. Baraka was very kind, although he did love his food. He did get impatient if there wasn't any food. But he was also more of a browser, so he ate more the twigs than the actual grass. They did spend time explaining the differences between like white rhinos and black rhinos, which is not with the color of their skin. It's more like individual features, and the black and white is more based off of the color of the soil around where they're typically more likely to hang out. Baraka also has a lot of cuts and whatnot. He does just get cuts just from going through the tree, and there are flies trying to keep it clean. He also has his woodpecker friends to help keep him clean naturally. But the keepers there do keep an eye on Baraka to make sure that none of the cuts do get infected, which is good. We all had a chance to feed Baraka. I got to feed him twice. Afterwards, we walked back through a little mini forest where Robert explained different medicinal properties of the plants that are around. And that's really his area of expertise, and unfortunately, I do not remember any of it. I remember there's something you can chew that can get rid of the headache entirely. There was something that smelled like mint. He passed the plant around that smelled like mint, but my mind was fried at that point. We also saw some monkeys, and he was explaining the skulls and whatnot. We saw a big elephant skull, and I did try to lift up the elephant skull. I had permission to, and it was heavy. I have lifted things that are heavier at that point, but usually the things I've lifted that are heavier than elephant skull have required a pallet jack. We went back on the road, and it was after we saw the rhino that we saw the elephant. And then we ended up coming back to camp. It was funny. He went like, mission. So I was like, oh yeah, what are we going to see? And the mission was to get us back to camp on time for dinner. Dinner was very special last night. We had a bush dinner. So it was basically dinner outdoors. There was a nice table set up for us, like the drinks were all included. We met at the reception area, and then we followed the path of the lanterns to the location of the dinner. So there were like lanterns on the ground, and we could actually see it lit up the way, and we walked through this grass path. And then we met the people from the Turkana tribe who were going to dance for us. So they were dressed in their indigenous regalia. The women had matching dresses. They had the same two fabric patterns that were matching, and they had beaded necklaces that were at least an inch thick piled on top of each other. The men also had something wrapping around their waist, and they were wearing white tank tops, and they had feathers off at the top of their head. They led us to the area of the dinner, and it was a procession. They danced for at least a half hour. It was impressive. It was almost like a campfire in a way, where it's like, oh, we know this song, we know that song. They were doing the same thing where it's like, oh, let's do this dance and that dance. You could see that interaction going, and they really enjoyed it. One person would often break away from the group, and he was holding something like a feather duster and waving it over us. And he pulled one of the other people into the group to go ahead and dance. So he danced for a little bit, and then a little bit later on, I got pulled into the group, and they also gave us glasses of champagne. So I was holding a glass of champagne. So When I got pulled in, I just handed my glass of champagne to the other person standing next to me. I couldn't be able to dance to my best potential if I was holding a glass of champagne in my hand. By the time they pulled me in, there was a lot of jumping, and their stamina was a lot better than mine was, because they were able to jump very, very high in just their sandaled feet, and I'm wearing these heavy boots and I'm barely able to keep on jumping. I was wearing a backpack too. It was just hard to keep on jumping. It was really cool to get to dance with them though. And then after that we had the dinner. They brought out the soup, they let us choose the drinks, and then they had a buffet out that we could see. When I ordered the meat, I got to try out some Swahili, which was nice. I had chicken and fish, and I had some steamed rice, and I think I had some potatoes. And then we had a very nice conversation. One of the other ladies makes friends with everybody, and she got talking with one of the other people there, and it turns out our tour guide came over and was like, hey, that gentleman wants to know if it's okay if he leaves now. And it's like, oh, I guess he's interested in her. We don't know what happened that led to that assumption. So we started joking about like, oh, was that a marriage proposal? Well, if we're going to get out, or we're going to push the price high, we're going to negotiate the price high. We were just very, very giggly during the dinner. We could actually see some of the stars. Some of the stars started appearing for the first time, which was nice. And then after the bush dinner, we went for the night drive. So I ended up going on my third safari drive of the day, which was not included with the tour package that I had. So I ended up paying for another one, but it was worth it, even though I was done with it halfway through because I was tired and cold and worried about the amount of sleep that I needed. But it was interesting just to see the savannah changed when it was nighttime and seeing what popped up. We ended up seeing a striped hyena. How we ended up seeing the animals when there's no light out was there were actually two guides. The guides I had were brothers. One of them was driving and the other one had a floodlight, and he was moving the floodlight back and forth to constantly scan the surrounding area. And we were traipsing through every bush imaginable because a lot of the animals stay in bushes because it's easier to hide from predators. So we saw lots of hyenas. They were looking very, very hard for a lion. We weren't able to find any lions. And earlier today we saw some hyenas that had their heads down, so they weren't able to get any food either. So it wasn't just us last night. We did see some zebras, lots of gazelles that night. There were some Cape hares, so the little bunny rabbits, and it was just nice. It was just like meditative, just watched through the savannah, and there's a lot of fresh air because we opened up the window to get a better view of the animals, and the roof kind of blocked it, but there were gaps in the roof and you could see like the sky was littered with stars. It was like absolutely gorgeous. It's like the type of stars you can't see when you live in an area with light pollution. And even so, when you look at a map of the world where there is light pollution, Africa is not very well lit compared to the main cities in North America and Europe and whatnot. So it was still surprising to me that I could see beyond the edge to the savannah to city lights, and you could actually still see lights on in the distance. I know they weren't the tents because the lights were blue, and the lights here have more of an orange hue to them. We drove a lot by the electric fence, which the animals know how close they can get before they get bothered by the electric fence. They also had a blanket for each of us when we went in, which was very helpful. I was very thankful for the blanket when I was towards the end of the ride because it made everything much warmer. Yeah, that was my day yesterday. After I got back, I just went to bed. I was exhausted, even though I was done for the day by the end of that ride. I'm very glad I went on it because it's like, who knows when I'm going to come back here again. Never say never, right? But also, realistically, I know it's going to be at least another year for me to raise the funds to do something like this again. And I also know the next time I go to another country, it's probably going to be another country I've never been to before. But yeah, that was today. And the montage section is probably going to be quite a bit longer today because there was a lot that happened.
it a drop speeder machine. So we have to spin the deep yarns for making carpets or weaving carpets, because a carpet needs a strong yarns. So we use this hand machine, we call it a drop speeder. That's how we weave the shells or the start. We have that for the completed one at the showroom. For many years. Yeah, for many years.
Are we all set? Yeah. I know there's some people who are still coming. Hiya.